Salzman, I'm the Emergency Management Director in Royalton.
Brenda, Emergency Director in Tunbridge, and
Dietre Fire Emergency Coordinator.
So, thank you all for coming out for this. It was Brenda's idea, but it's like, that's how we do it. Just basically going to sort of talk about what happens if the power goes out for an extended period of time. 2 weeks is kind of arbitrary. I figured, by then, the food in the refrigerator will go bad, freezers would go bad, your cell phone would die, you run out of gas, that kind of thing. So it's just kind of something to think about. So tonight we're going to sort of discuss what we might anticipate, maybe some ways we can try to get ready. We don't have all the answers, but hopefully some brainstorming, some thinking, some questions, kind of come up with some options for us. What else? Grocery stores, hardware stores, department stores, they're likely to be closed. Pharmacies, ATM and credit card machines would be down. We wouldn't have internet, we wouldn't have electricity. So this is kind of a change from what we're used to. Things that we sort of take for granted. This might not be a joke. So that's the reason for this tonight. There's some housekeeping, 2 exits, that way and that way. We're all it's 2 bathrooms, one's in the corner there, one's under the staircase here, if you need them. There's some refreshments on the back table there, you can help yourself. There's a couple things displayed and some handouts over on that little kit. Smoking is prohibited. You can't please silence your cell phones, just for courtesy. Know that I know. Anything else?
not that I can think of. Again, normally around here we tend to be out of power for 2 to 3 days. I think a year or 2 ago I was out for 5 days. We're also on Washington Electric, and they do a lot of rural stuff, and they've really worked hard to improve themselves, but they tend to have it. We went back to 98 during the ice storm that a lot of us here remember. That wasn't great. I know I got ordered back to work and they sent the National Guard out. If we look down south what they're going through right now, we could easily be in that position. Times have changed. We're really pushing a lot of electrical appliances and things in your house. May be a little rough for you to rethink that, so we're prodding you to think about what do you really need to go 2 weeks when you can't even get to the gas station to get gas because maybe the trees are down from an ice storm. Sit and think about it. I think you have to plan. You're probably going to have to spend some money. And if you plan ahead of time, then you know where you're going. Hopefully you get some ideas out of these folks so you get going. Of course, the first person who's going to talk, isn't it? Talk a lot about what they're doing to improve all of that hazard. But one of the things that I wanted to mention for Tunbridge, and I can't speak for Brad with Royalton, I got an idea that, this is your shelter, I believe here. We have our shelter in Tunbridge is at the school. In truth, if we have a situation like this, I really doubt whether me and Tunbridge can open it. We expect you guys to be able to take care of yourself. And that's the honest truth. And we're not going to be able to get to you. We're going to ask someone to leave their house, their animals, and their problems and go sit at the school to babysit. And unless it's an emergency, it's going to be tough. And now that we have a school with different rules in there, I haven't figured all that out yet, how we handle that. How we handle the people that are in the building and then possibly the kids that need to go to the building. And I'm running this office in scenarios. My brother was at EMD in Leverett, Mass, outside of Amherst. And there were 2 solid weeks without power, which I was surprised they lasted that long. They ended up putting the kids in the school and had to move all the people who were sheltering there out because they couldn't have them together. You'll have to background check someone with us. So,
Yeah, so on the tables are some handouts, just some things to think about. We have a panel of experts here on what but I'm hoping we'll just talk for 5 or 10 minutes just on their area of knowledge and expertise. And then we'll open it up for discussions and questions and some of the stuff hasn't been addressed by the commissioners.
you could add to our list of things to think about there. Alright. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Tiana Smith. I'm here from Green Mountain Power. So we are one of the power companies, obviously that serves this area. And most of what I'm going to talk about today is the things that we do in preparation for when there's going to be outages, how we communicate, those kinds of things, and then some about what we're doing about grid hardening and resiliency and things that you all can be thinking about during those times. I really commend you for having a meeting like this. I spoke 2 years ago, I think, in Tunbridge about this. There's been work actually in this area, Bethel to Sharon, since then, and work continues, but happy to answer any questions that you have. I've got a little presentation that I'm gonna just keep myself grounded by stepping through. So a little bit about GMP. We serve 275,000 customers. We're about 3/4 of the state. People think of us, I think, as being like in the big towns, but we're actually mostly rural. We're a mostly rural electric utility. And about 500 employees for those 275,000 customers. I lead the call center, electrification and sustainability there. And about 285 of our folks are part of the IBEW Local 300 union. So no surprise to you all, and we're gonna have a cold one tonight, but weather's getting worse. Storms are getting worse. Even though it's been really cold, which is great, right? We have light, fluffy snow, and that means it's not taking down trees and power lines. But we have had a rough few years here in Vermont. 22, I think, that Christmas of 22 into 23. I am not a GMP customer, I'm a Vermont Electric customer, but I was out for 6 days. And yeah, warming climate means stronger storms, more severe events. It means that you're having a lot of water content and snow. And so a lot of times we hear from customers like, it always snows here. It snows in Vermont, but the snow is changing. And it's heavier and it takes down a lot. It causes a lot of damage. More risk for infrastructure. We have our infrastructure is above the ground and it's poles and wires and it can come down. So and that means unfortunately more outages for customers. So when we are anticipating a storm or really any sort of weather, even flooding in the summer and things like that, there is a lot of forecasting and preparation that goes into that. And so we have 4 different forecasters that we're constantly, half the time I feel like I'm working like actually in a weather center. And our head of operations probably could be on the Weather Channel, to be perfectly honest with you. So looking at weather models, they're telling us how many outages are predicted and where those are going to be. And then what we're doing is making sure our own internal crews are ready and prepped. So our crews from up north oftentimes are being deployed down south. But then we're also reaching out. We have our North Atlantic Mutual Aid Assistance Group. And so those are people that we reach out to say, we need help, we're going to secure crews, and we do that ahead of storms based on these models that we use just to make sure that we've got people in. So if you're ever looking out and you're like, hey, the person that's in front of, the truck that's in front of my house doesn't say GMP, it says, wherever. People could be coming from Louisiana, they could be coming from Nova Scotia, wherever, but they're here to help. We do have 15 different operating districts, and so like for this particular one, Royalton's district, they all operate like a little control center, and so they work for the town that they're in. Many of you probably know people or live by people that work for GMP or might be familiar with Ted Russo, who's our operations supervisor for Royalton. But it's a really efficient way for us to have storms run, and they run right from the district, right? And again, you know, if they need help from St. Albans or Colchester or wherever that is, those folks they slide slant throughout the state to help. Our restoration process, I think this is really important for people to know, because a lot of times we hear from people and they're like, hey, I just wanted to let you know that I'm on oxygen. And a lot of people are on medical equipment, a lot of people have electrified homes, and that's not the way the electric grid works. So while it's really important that we do know people that are on medical equipment, because we can call and check up on them and work on getting them resources or work with emergency managers to you know, have them looked in on. The first thing that we're doing when we are in storm restoration is that we're making everything safe. Sometimes that can take a really long time during a really large outage. We're clearing roads, and we're doing that so that way your road crews and our crews can actually get access, right? So if there's down wires, down trees, often it's our crews that are out there clearing the way, making everything safe. That's the first thing that we're doing. And then we're really going from the transmission line all the way through to that sort of last house. And that's the way that the grid works. So if the transmission line is down, it doesn't matter if we're fixing things at your house, that transmission line has to be going. So transmission to substation facilities, that is done after we're clearing the hazards. Then we repair our main distribution lines. Those are the lines that come out of substations. From there, making sure that we're restoring hospitals or other sort of critical infrastructure. Sometimes we're hearing from towns about maybe your water pumps or, you know, septic systems or whatever that might look like. From there, we're restoring areas with the largest number of customers, so larger neighborhoods or larger towns, and then going all the way down to restoring isolated events. So think about sort of the last home. It's actually, my house is like one of the last home applied. And so the reason for that is we have to restore everything upstream from that in order to get to that last house. I communicate with emergency managers during storms, and we give high-level estimates. We may say, okay, Tunbridge is actually, we think will be fully restored within the next 48 hours. Most people will be on before that time. That 48-hour estimate might be for that very last house that is going to be brought back online. It's so important that we have a really strong, great partnership with communities. We do extensive outreach before storms, during storms, after storms, to let people know what we're expecting to see. You know, crews that we're planning for, and just kind of keeping everyone up to date on that, because our hope is that then town officials, emergency managers, road foremen are communicating out to all of you. Also, you know the people in your communities that are the most vulnerable. And I hear, you know, you talking about it during, you know, it's such an important thing to be for neighbors to be helping neighbors, right? My next door neighbor is in her 90s, and, you know, she needs us because the electric utility or, you know, or even the emergency manager may not necessarily be able to get to her when things are not going well in terms of that power being out. So helpful to have nights like this and to have really strong relationships with you all. So we are also not just sort of sitting back and as fun as it is to pick up the same infrastructure over and over and over again, we are working to build a more resilient energy system. And we're doing that through a combination of undergrounding, storm hardening above ground lines. So when you are driving through, or you might be looking on that line in Sharon or Bethel, and you see those diamonds that, if you're the kind of person that likes to look up at electric lines, you see those diamonds that are kind of gathering the three phases of power together. That's storm hardening, and what that allows for is there's actually a steel line on top of that, and trees can lay on top of that line, and basically keep the power on until our crews can come and remove those at a different time. We actually talked to somebody a couple years ago in Athens who just, you know, a week or so before had said on one span of line she'd seen 9 trees laying on a storm hardened line. So very effective and a very important part of what we're doing to make sure that it's more resilient. We're undergrounding where we can. Where we can't, we're storm hardening, and then when you think about sort of the customers that are as far out on the line as you can get, battery storage is really important for those customers. So if you have a battery, we have a leasing program that for $55 a month you can lease a battery, and depending on, especially if you're managing your load during outages, can last 2 days, 3 days, and keep you powered up during outages. The other thing that program does is it actually lowers costs for all customers. So we can use those batteries when you're not using them, when the power is out. When we're using the most power as a system, we can draw off of those batteries. It prevents us from having to go out and buy dirty, expensive, unclean energy. And then all of those savings from not having to go out and buy power when it's really expensive are given back to customers. So, and it's in the order of millions every year that it saves GMP customers. We have, in this mighty little state, we have over 7,000 customers, over 7,000 batteries total on our system, and that's incredible. I mean, that level, I saw an article in California where that number of batteries prevented them from having a brownout, and we're doing it here in this state. We have 80 megawatts of the clean battery storage that helps us whenever the grid is down. So really important. So that's. I tried to keep it that there's a lot going on at GMP, and I'm happy to answer any questions, but that's just a little bit about what we're doing to both prep when we know that the power is going to be out, but then also to protect our grid and protect you all as Vermonters.
Great.
Yeah.
If we could, let's just move right down through and then we'll have questions at the end. So hang on, folks.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Kevin with Catamount Solar. I'm the energy storage manager there. I mostly install on-grid systems, so I'm kind of that guy. If you're at the end of the line, it might make sense to talk to about some things, but just in terms of how I size off-grid systems and thinking in that realm, being at the end of the line, it's really about conserving power. And the first thing I think about when someone reaches out and talks about designing off-grid system is the heat. That's the biggest load usually in upper Vermont house. So the more layers of redundancy we can build into that, the better. I think that we are all trying to get away from fossil fuels, but it was also good to have some sort of backup to the electric power and in those situations. So that's the first thing we think about. Propane, they make different types of heaters that don't even require energy. Really, it's just how direct mounted on the side and backup valve. But in terms of what we're trying to design is like 2 to 3 days of autonomy would be ideal for Vermont. If you can get one of that, better. 4 to 5 days is what I see people really thriving on with solar and a backup generator. So we start to add all these layers of redundancy, and we'll basically survive without the grid, or essentially create your own utilities with battery storage in certain ways. So the way that we do that is we analyze your load profile essentially and see what your baseline load is going to be, and then size your battery system off of that. And we kind of go from there in terms of sizing your solar production to fill up that battery every time you have an opportunity. So in Vermont, we get a lot of snow, and this year in particular, it's been extremely bad solar production west. And if you have the solar arrays, you're low on credits and stuff. If you're trying to create especially not off-grid, that's what you rely on for your charging source. If not, it goes directly to a generator, which to the standby generator or local generator, which you connect to that little 30 amp slot there. It's, we do both with a lot of our systems. If you have a roof-mounted array that's going to get covered, you can't cover, you can, but get us there, get it off. Maybe it's got to be more than 3 days until that thing sheds and gets you solar powered. And then at that point, we have maybe a standby generator and a 30 amp slot just in case that standby generator doesn't start, something's going on, you have a backup, tooth backup. More redundancy that you can have and just so much faster the better. In terms of like grid tie stuff with the ESS program, which is awesome and really helping everyone in general. When it comes down to like battery storage, you just have to think about inserting your loads when the power goes out. So power goes out, whatever battery you have, it should send you a notification on your phone or whatever system you have that says, hey, the grid went down, probably time to turn things off. There's ways to drive that, where you could even create a non-essential loads backup count. Only back up the things that you want, and more like things that you need to really back up your house. It sheds all the loads that would otherwise be unnecessary, like batteries or, random other things. It's really like keep your refrigerator on, leave your heat on, stuff like that.
Don't get in your hot tub.
It's really small. Shut them bigger. And that keeps the system size a lot smaller. So that makes it a little more, cost effective. It's the more that you try to back up, or you think you want to back up, the more the cost goes in those kind of systems. With the ESS program, it's been really successful. It gives people battery backup and, backup power, keeps the lights on for most outages. With 2 batteries, 27 kilowatt hours, that's a lot of power, especially if you're conservative with your loads. You can last quite a few days with that, if you're keeping track of what you're using. So I think it's essential to keep in mind what your baseline load is, and with those kind of systems, it'll actually tell you what you're using in your house. A lot of people don't know, what your baseline load is. Typically what I see in Vermont, so I don't think we know, it's maybe like an average of 500 watts, something like that as a baseline load. It can be more, it can be less. We define stuff. It kind of depends on, every different circumstance. So at that point, it's just kind of trying to figure out what you got going on. There's different ways of doing that, but it's really thinking about things that heat and things that move. Those are the 2 big things that use the most amount of energy. So if we know that something's coming, we have a system like this, it's good to start thinking about what things you might be able to turn off. Because even without a non-essential load panel that could shed all those automatically, you could go and turn stuff off to conserve energy in your home electrical thing as well. And if you like a good start maybe is to identify where you live. If a lot of people, the house they go to, there's not a panel schedule in the electrical panel. So you have no idea where all that power is going. It's really a good idea, good exercise one day. If you don't have one of those, go through and turn breakers off individually and have someone else running around. What turned off, you can label all that stuff if that has an everything. It's more that way. Again, like in terms of redundancy in a system, if you have a battery, it really makes sense to have solar too, because that's an extra way to charge that. So with the ESS programs, if you were to go that direction, having a solar system can recharge your batteries during the day if those panels are clear. A lot of times an outage event might be a big snowstorm, so it's kind of don't work out together very well. You might have to do some work, or if it's a good steep array, you know, you might get lucky and come out, but that's where the 2 to 3 days of autonomy guys in terms of battery set. A lot of times the storms come through and that's sunny day the next day. You've got a good efficient panels that you can clear out and each other. And on top of that, if you have a generator behind that that can connect to that steam system, then essentially you create your own little off-grid system. You know, that is connecting like parallel with that utility stack. There's a lot of cool ways to get around that, and you know, bulletproof your home to find where you don't go along with. But in terms of, you know, loads, it's just really thinking about those bigger loads in your house that what you might not conserve energy in a scenario like this where you really make sure things are going well. You might get line packing that is.
Right, thanks.
Directly. I guess I'm next. Royalton Fire Chief here, South Royalton. I guess I'm here to talk about fire safety when there's an outage and some other things that we would get called out because of this. One, we often get called out when the power lines go down. Remember that there's live wires until these guys get 3-mount power or whoever handles that is on scene. You know, they're not to be touched. We're there just to protect the house if we need to, and also the people that are made in contact with, you know, keep people away. That means not driving over the lines and things like that also with your vehicles. Second thing I'd like to talk about is, you know, a lot of people would want to pull in a backup generator. You know, if you don't have a professionally, you know, mounted automatic type of generator, a lot of people have the ones that they pull out and they plug into their house, or they would actually just run an extension cord into their house and run some type of power and then there. Make sure the generators are outside of the building, away from windows and stuff, where we have the window open or something, not too full in the carts outside, back into the house and have an issue there. You know, make sure these generators are running properly, well tuned up, running, you know, efficient, you know, and be careful with them. You know, if you have to refuel them, make sure they're cooled off before you do that, and stuff. You know, these things do get hot, and you know, gasoline doesn't take much for vapors to ignite. So, those are some talks about the generators and where to place them. You know, make sure they're outside the building, away from windows, doors, where that can be pulling the exhaust back into the house. Also, size your utility cords properly. If you're running them into the house and make sure you have a good heavy duty extension cords, not something that's going to be hot. If that extension cord is getting hot, then you're overloaded. So, next thing I'll talk about is you know, your backup heat. A lot of us Vermonters still have wood stoves in their houses. One, they should be inspected. You know, and the chimneys should be inspected by professional chimney sweepers. You know, we get often get called to, well, will you guys come and inspect your chimneys? No, we don't. Fire department doesn't inspect chimneys. We don't clean chimneys. See that? If you have a chimney fire, put the chimney fire out, then it needs to be inspected by a professional. So, but make sure that your appliance is in good shape. You know, properly installed and kept well. Can't go over enough of that. You know, these winter, you know, this winter's been very cold, and you know, I know a lot of people are just stuffing their wood stoves as much as they can. You can keep the houses warm and make sure these things are in good shape. Using gas stoves, cooking stoves to heat your house is not recommended to do this, but believe me, it will be done. So, like there's but this is not recommended. CL comes off, and you really need to make sure, it's not the gas grills are the same thing. Don't hold them into the house. Try to keep the house with those. If you go cooking with a gas grill outside on the deck or outside where it's not in the house. Make sure, I talked about carbon monoxide, make sure your detectors are good. We've had quite a few this year already, calls to go check homes, and we've had issues this year with quite a few carbon monoxide issues. It's either, most of it's been from gas burning appliances, okay, either stove or furnace or hot water heater. So make sure that those things are, your gas company should be tuning those things up to ensure they're running properly. Again, fire safety as far as kerosene lamps, kerosene heaters, same thing. Kerosene heaters can give off CO if they're not burning properly. So make sure, I can't stress enough the CO detectors. Make sure they're good in the house. Candles, be sure, this is fire safety around the house. If you're walking around with candles or using candles to get to run your room, for your lane, make sure that you're using them right. Those are the big things as far as fire safety. And if you need us, call us. We're always willing to come check out whatever we need. But that's all I can say.
I'm Bradford. I'm the Tunbridge Fire Chief, but I'm here tonight. I'm also an electrician. I've been an electrician for 30 years. I'm here to talk about generator safety and sizing and stuff of that sort. First of all, I want to echo what Paul said with the carbon monoxide detectors. Always make sure you have a carbon monoxide detector. Always make sure that even if you have your generator outside, make sure the exhaust is pointing away from the house. I worked on a brand new house, and their first storm, they plugged the generator in, everything was great, and they woke up in the middle of the night to the carbon monoxide alarms going off because their exhaust was pointed right at their house. It was going up into the eaves of the house and filled the whole house with carbon monoxide. So it's not just having an open window. You can find it a lot of ways in the house. Always, make sure you're safe with it. Never try to backfeed your house on your own. Make sure that you have an electrician come to your house and get you a plan on how to do that. If you go to Home Depot or even to Welch's or Aubuchon's, they have a thing there showing a picture of a double-ended extension cord saying, "We will not help you make these. Do not use those. Those will burn your house down. They're not they can kill one of her linemen very easily." Same thing with there's some people that have they'll plug their generators into a dryer outlet or a range outlet. That you need to make sure that you have a device like one of these that I'll show you to make sure it's done safely. Because anything you plug in, if you don't turn off if you don't disconnect to the power lines, everything you do is going to go in reverse. So it's going to take your power, reverse it to 14,000 or 1,400 volts, and electrocute one of their linemen. There are a lot of newer, easier ways to power your house. the old way, everybody had a transfer switch installed. It was a manual switch that you could change from generator, utility to generator, off to generator. Nowadays, there's a lot of other ways to do it. One of the easiest ways is a generator interlock kit. This would just mount on your electrical panel. On your cover, it makes you turn your main breaker to the off position. Then it would allow you to slide this up, and then it would allow you to put your generator on or your generator breaker on. That would ensure that the power is off and no lining are going to get injured. And that breaker would be tied to an outlet outside that you could plug your generator directly into, and you don't have to have cords running through windows and stuff like that. So these are fairly inexpensive ways to safely backup power your house. There's another device that's fairly new, and I haven't seen one or installed one, but it's made by GeneraLink, and it is a device that an electrician can come to your house, take your meter out of your house, put this device in, and place your meter back in, and that becomes your transfer switch. And you now have the opportunity to power any circuits in your home. You would obviously probably aren't going to be able to run your whole entire house off of a small generator, but you could selectively turn on or turn off loads as you need it to do things. The GeigerLink is probably the quickest and probably the cheapest way to do it. They're fairly expensive, but they're extremely quick install time. They just have like I said, you just pop them in, and they have a cord that comes off. It comes with it. It goes to your generator. Load management is going to be the biggest thing in a 2-week power outage. Your normal generator, even idling at 50%, is going to draw half a gallon to a gallon per hour with that power level. So if you are planning to run your generator for 2 weeks straight, you're going to need about 170 gallons of gas, which is probably not going to work. So rationing it, run it for a couple hours in the morning, get your freezer, your refrigerator up to temperature or down to temperature, get your heat in your house on for a while, get your restock your water supply, things like that. Don't just let it run all day long. Even though the kids really want to play their PlayStation and be on the internet, at the same time, recharge your cell phones, recharge any of your battery banks that you have, stuff like that. What else? As far as sizing of a generator, it's really hard to sit here. Everybody's house here would need a different size generator depending on what you have. My house, I have all LED light fixtures. I have gas stove, gas hot water. I don't have a deep well pump. I have a shallow well 120 volt pump, and I can run just about all of my house on a 6,500 watt generator. If it's a short outage, I can turn it on, except for my dryer. My dryer's electric. I can't run my dryer. That's fine though. Like to watch it anyway. But yeah, you can run. You don't need a 10,000 watt generator to run a smaller room. But it all comes down to load management. Keeping stuff off that you don't need. Normally have everything running and GMP will give you all the power you want, but your generator only has so much it can do, and running it at a full tilt is gonna, like I said, that 168 gallons is 50% load on a generator. So you can do it, but you're not gonna have gas for too long. And if in a 2 week outage, the Corning Mobile does have a generator, and they are able to give you gas if they have it. But when they run out, you may not be able to get gas. Another thing is, if you have a generator, don't wait until the storm to test to make sure your generator is working. I have a friend of mine that has a generator, and I went to his house and helped him get it started, and we turned on the the gas to the thing, and the gas started running right out of the carburetor. I said, well, that's all we're gonna do, turn the gas off and put it back, you're not gonna get power, I'm not. Yeah, so take your generator out, make sure it's gonna work, make sure that you have all the cords, that your kids haven't stolen, the cord to do something, and if you're gonna leave your generator with gas in it, try to get like a non-ethanol gas that isn't gonna separate, that isn't gonna break down and gel up the fuel system.
Oh my God. Actually, that means we had.
That's about all I have.
You're right, Jessica. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dietre Feeney, and I was asked to speak to you tonight about food storage. And so, as I was sitting here thinking, listening to everybody, I thought, what is the first thing that you see on the headlines as soon as you see the storm is coming? What do people do? They storm the grocery stores, right? Because what's the first thing that we just don't want to suffer from? Hunger. And so I've spent a lot of years teaching classes on how to think about and prepare a food storage. And our church really focuses on that, people being very self-reliant and planning ahead. And so when we talk about food storage, we kind of talk about it in two ways. A short term, something that's gonna last a few weeks or a month. And then we think broader, job loss, illness, natural disasters, family emergencies, food or crop shortages. So that kind of, makes you kind of think, oh, maybe I need to think more in terms of maybe 6 months. If I lost my job, my savings would allow me to pay my mortgage and, a few other really important things, but it may not allow me to eat the food I like to eat. So, when we think about storage, 2 weeks, we think about basic food supply, a water storage, and some money in your savings account or in your checking account or some cash on hand. What I always try to teach is be wise. First thing, be wise. Don't go to extremes. This is not about hoarding. This is not about trying to get everything you can and not thinking about your neighbors. And it's making a plan and sticking to it. So the first rule of thumb is to make an assessment of what you already have, all right? When was the last time you dug to the bottom of your chest freezer? What's in there? How much do you have? What's in your pantry? Do you have stuff down in your basement? And then establish the idea of what does your family actually eat? So for example, we'd stored for years things that I felt that, would really sustain our family for a while. Well, then I was diagnosed with severe food allergies. And so a lot of the things that I had been storing, I could no longer eat. And then we found out my daughter was in the same position, so she couldn't eat it. So it was like, okay, well that's no good to us. So I had to kind of do a reassessment of what it is that we can store that our entire family can eat. So don't store stuff you can't eat or your family won't eat. It's a waste of money, it's a waste of food, and it's a waste of space. The other thing you want to consider is, okay, how many would I need to feed, right? So in COVID, we were a household of 3, and then all of a sudden we became a household of many because college students came home and, because they the world was shutting down. Do you have family that live close but not in your neighborhood, that maybe live close that are not as secure as you that might move in temporarily if there was, a disaster of sorts? Do you have a neighbor or 2 or 3 that just don't have the means or the ability to take care of themselves? Would you be then making sure that they had food to eat? So it's really just, what does that plan look like? And then start small. We teach that you store enough food for a day for your family. What does that look like? Then, once you know how much your family consumes in a day, then you multiply that by 7, and now you've got a week. And then you gradually expand to a month and eventually 3 months. The thing that I really want you to think about too is, all right, do you have pets? What would you need to make sure that your pets or your livestock, had to get through the grain truck not being able to get through because the trees are all down or power lines are down, or how many pets do you have? What do they eat? So you want to think about them. You want to think about medications. It's not just about food storage, it's about medication. What do you generally use? What do you need daily for medications? That can be a little trickier to store because, if your insurance doesn't allow you to buy, medication in advance, you want to talk to your pharmacist, talk to your doctor, see how you can, if you have insulin or you have another form of medication that you need on the daily, plan ahead for that. Don't forget about those. Hygiene products. Babies, do you have a baby in your family? What are they going to need? You figure how many diapers do you go through in a day? Multiply that by 7, that's 7 days. Now multiply that by 2 weeks if you're without, formula or diapers. That can become very unpleasant. And then water. So the general rule is a gallon per person per day. Now, in the summertime, if it's 100 degrees, you may be consuming more water than that in a day. You also want to think about how would I cook a 40-pound bag of rice that I have now stored, or dried beans. Dried beans store great. And a lot of people have dried beans, but it also takes a lot of water to hydrate and cook those dried beans. So you want to be thinking about that. So then, okay, now you have this food storage. Where do you store it? If space is really limited, say you live in a really small home or you live in an apartment, think about space under your beds. What's under your bed? Can you stack a few boxes, drape something over it, put your lamp on it? Now you've got a lamp stand, but you've got canned goods that'll last you 2 weeks under that lamp. You want to store in constant temperature. One of the biggest problems that people don't think about is, well, I've stored it all out in a storage shed. Well, that's great, except what happens when it gets really cold? A lot of that is going to freeze. And then what happens when it gets really hot out? Then it's going to get really warm. So you want your food storage kept at as constant temperature as possible. So an attic, probably not your best place to store. A garage or an outside building, probably not a great place. Most basements, and most Vermonters have basements, is a really great place to store. The key is you don't want to store directly on your concrete, because what happens is things that are in plastic, especially if you're storing water, cases of water you just put down on your dirt floor in your basement or on your concrete, it's going to absorb that flavor. And, if you're really hungry, probably doesn't matter. But, it's also about food provides a lot of other comforts, right, than just filling our stomachs. And we don't want to be eating, you know, stuff that just doesn't taste good. And then you also want to think about, and a lot of these people have already kind of addressed that, is how are you going to cook this, right? So now you're without power for 2 weeks. You've got to think about, how will I cook what I'm storing? You know, it's easy to open up a bunch of canned goods and, you know, put them in a pot and put it on your wood stove. But if you don't, you know, have that, you just want to think about how you're going to prepare that and plan for that. One thing I forgot to mention too is in the how to store is think about a variety of ways that you can store food. Now, I grew up on a very large dairy farm, multi-generational, and I learned how to can, freeze, dehydrate from a young age. And so we had chest freezers, which were full, but we also had, these are called number 10 cans, which I'm gonna jump back here a little bit. If this all sounds very overwhelming to you, I will tell you, and I Googled this morning just to see just how many websites there are. If you've got the means and you don't want the hassle, you can Google all of these like emergency essentials, mountain man or mountain something. There's like 7, 8 that I came up with right off the top that you can just go on their website. Yeah, and you can order a kit for a day that will be everything that you could dream of eating in a day, or you can buy your 30 days. You can buy number 10 cans. If you don't have ways to store these great big 5-gallon buckets, you can, like, you know, this is dry milk. And you can buy it in these already, you know, aluminum cans. They already have the air packet in them. And you just write a date on the bottom, or they might have an expiration date on it, and then you've got it. But so there's all kinds of ways. You can dehydrate, you can glass bottle can, freeze, what's the other one? I can't think of it now off the top of my head, but lots of different ways. And then rotate, okay? I think one of the biggest mistakes people make when they store food is they just store it. Wait, you need to use it, right? So you want to use and replace. And so I kind of have a system where, you know, if I open a can, then I write down on a list, replace said can, right? And so when I go grocery shopping or I go online, I know, okay, I've used this many number, you know, cans, I want to replenish those. Unfortunately, right now is a tough time to be thinking food storage because the price of groceries is through the roof. Probably some of the most expensive prices we've seen in decades. But you know, don't get overwhelmed by that. You know, start small. The next time you go to the grocery store, instead of buying 1 can of tuna fish, buy 3, right? Just little things that you can do that will build your confidence and build a little bit of storage so that you have it. And you know, water storage, I did bring a few things. You know, our church really kind of emphasizes to not go crazy with the storing of water unless you're really afraid of contamination or, you know, some big horrible water disaster. But I've found that these water store cubes are really great, and you can get them online in packs of, like, I think this is a pack of 6, and you can fill it with water, write the date. Now we have town water, and so our water is already chlorinated, so I can fill these and feel pretty confident that that water is going to last for 6 months in this bag, as long as it's not stored in bright light, right, down in the basement where it's nice and dark, not on a concrete floor. But if you're using well water, then there is a lot of information online about how to treat that water so that it stays fresh for longer. I will tell you, be very careful about how you treat your well water when you're storing it. It just takes the tiniest bit of like chlorine or whatnot to treat that water so it lasts, but you really want to read into the science of it. This is not the time or place to teach you about it tonight. But that's one way. We just bought our family, we each have a water straw, right? So, I mean, I haven't done it yet, and it kind of freaks me out to think about it, but I could go down to the river in my backyard and stick the straw in and give a nice big slurp, and I'd have my water. But this is a great thing to have if you, like, you know, you have a 72-hour pack, you know, an emergency pack that you just grab and go. You know, Irene, how many of you had to grab and go? This would have been a great, you know, great thing to have in there. So there are all kinds of things, and I mean, you could go down the rabbit hole of Googling, because there's just so much on the internet about how to store and what to store, and so many companies and whatnot that provide stuff. But that's just a little bit. I do have handouts. The handout up here talks a little bit about what I talked about, plus also on the back is long term. Like if you wanted to do a year supply, how much it would be and what great things store and for how long, like rice and beans and the years that they will store. So help yourself with that.
Thanks. I'm Kevin Geiger. I'm with the Regional Planning Commission. Ari's in back somewhere there too. So Ari and I work in emergency management. Our role in emergencies is largely not to talk with you all. Our role is you all talk to the towns, and then we help the towns, or we talk with GMP or other folks, and then connect them with the state emergency management. So that's usually what I'm doing. Yeah, on a large disaster. But I've been through enough things now, so I've got a few tips that I can relate to you. Then I have to skip out for a little bit for an emergency select board meeting, and hopefully I'll pop back. I'm not on the select board. I'm the town operator, so we'll fix some things. Anyways, a couple of things. I think the first thing is be prepared mentally. So it's not a power outage, you're camping. It's the same thing. So think of it that way. Because you're going to have to keep your spirits up. Fire departments and other emergency responders pre-position resources when they know something's going to happen. Pre-position yourself. Go, oh, if I'm going to be stuck up here at the end of the road and all the trees are going to be down, don't count on somebody to get yourself out before the disaster happens. Very, very few of these weather things are a surprise. There are some things out there in the disaster world that can be a surprise, but very few weather things are a total surprise. So when they say watch and alert, watch and be alert. When they say warning, that's an immediate action that you need to take. So don't be like, well, I'm going to wait until I hear the warning, because that means go now. So pay attention. The folks at the National Weather Service do a great job out there. Everybody here drove here in a generator. It's called a car. It makes power. It won't power your refrigerator, but it'll power these things just fine. So remember that, and most importantly, it has a radio in it. So when you're wondering what's going on, everything else is dark, the radios are still going to work. Unless, you know, if the radios aren't working, don't call me. Go to where the power is. A lot of people, I've been involved with people where they go, you know, I don't have any power, but you go, but there's a road, it's open, get in your car, go to where the power is. You know, you don't have to wait for someone to come to you. Be risk averse. These folks are going to be busy. They don't need you tripping over something in the dark, poking yourself. So you have to adopt that risk averse. This is not the time to play with the ladder on the roof, you know, or anything else out there. One of the most important things I think we can use is a thermos. If it's going to be like this and going to be cold, boil this thermos, but get one of those big Stanley guys, you know. And if it's going to be cold, boil water, put that in the thermos. So you not only go into the disaster with water, but you go into the disaster with boiling hot water. And for most of our weather events, you're gonna know in 12 hours now that this thing's back. A lot of them, they're gonna clear over pretty quickly. You can make instant soup, coffee, cocoa, take a bath, whatever, out there. For the winter things, again, one of the tips here is go into the disaster cleaning. Clean your dishes, clean yourself, do everything so you don't have a pile of dirty dishes there. But also, in the winter, put your furnace up. So you go, usually my house goes to 62 in the daytime. At night, we can do it 58. But we might splurge and let's kick that to 66. So if we think maybe we're going to be out of power and the house is going to freeze. Same thing in the summer. Turn your fridge to max cold ahead of time so everything there gets extra cold before the power goes out. If it doesn't go out, turn your fridge back up the next day. That's perfectly fine. I blue tape my fridge because I will forget in the power that I'm not supposed to open the fridge. And so I have blue tape stuck in my fridge all the time. It says no. And then I just put it over the thing there. Another trick, especially for if you're worried about your fridge, is there's only probably 3 things in your fridge you're really gonna need that are gonna go bad quickly. Milk, if you got raw meat in there or something, get those out, put those in a cooler ahead of time. And then you're like, okay, if I need to, I'll just walk open my fridge. I could use these things right here. In the winter, I can set it outside. In the summer, I can go put ice in there, but they'll also last in there for a little bit. The 5-gallon bucket is probably the most underrated piece of modern technology we have. Put your stuff in there so you have a place to put stuff, but it is also how you flush the toilet. You go down the street, get some water, flush your toilet. It is also the toilet if you need to, right? A small thing of pine salt in a 5-gallon bucket will last you a long time. It won't be pleasant, but it works. So again, being mentally prepared, like, I'm going to be in a different situation out there. And those are some of the quick tips, I would say. Again, a lot of the stuff we first tonight are things that really sensible people should know. But boil it down to be risk averse. This is not the time to start something, to use a thing for the first time, to check it out, do any of those things. You want to practice any of this type of stuff, so that you don't have to experiment. And in terms of candles and flashlights and stuff, be ready. When we know the power's going to go out, we light a candle. So that when the power goes out, we don't fumble around in the dark to find the candle. Know where things are ahead of time. Every entrance to my house is a magnetic flashlight stuck next to it, or there's something hanging on a wall. So I have to go into my house in the dark. I can light my house, and I own a lot of flashlights. That's okay. So those are my quick tips out there. Again, if we have a disaster and you need something, your town's people are the best people to relay that information to, and then we go to them, and then that goes up to the state. That's how it but be safe, go into things prepared. It is very basic stuff. You just need to do it. Right. And now I have to skip out, but I'll be back.
That's segue to our townsperson.
I'm Walter Hastings. I'm working with Buildings and Grounds for the town of Royalton. We have a generator here. The only problem with the generator here, if it goes off, it's about the same as everybody else. It'll only go 3 to 5 days, but at max use. At half use, it'll go longer. But the issue we're having right now with it is that we can't get propane. It works in the stove, so we're down to about 2%. And the guy recommended not to run below 20 if they're running the generator. So that's some of the issue that we've had running up, we have to think about. We also want the town office the same way that way, so the generator can't work. So that's going to be on that. So think about all that stuff for the town. And, we also wanted the sewer plant that we pump our sewer out. Everybody thinks how we can go to town. Unfortunately, we have a generator there that pumps it to the sewer plant, but it takes about 100 gallons of diesel to run it for 24 hours. And that's a 100-gallon tank. So that's something I think that we have to think about doing this time is replace, think about water. I don't know, Paul, I don't know how water works.
Water's a little bit different. We do have backup generator at the water plant. We have to switch sources of water. During normal operation, we run water from the White River. We pump it up to this plant, filter it, and put it in the tanks, and then we're gravity fed in the tanks. So once we make water or filter water, we have water available. We do have storage for probably about 8 days of water if on normal use, without having to filter it on normal use. So if I can make water, we do have a generator, and we would have to run the generator probably about 6 hours a day to filter water. Right now, for our production, then if we bring in from the lake above, which comes down to the plant, we only have to run our generator for about 6 hours a day to filter water. We could, so running that way, we might get 10 or 12 days of production with we do have a big propane generator up there, and we do have quite a bit of stored propane at the plant. Depending on the time of year, if I have to heat the plant, if it's in the summertime, or I'm not having to heat the plant, it would go longer. We do heat the plant with propane, so that's, if it's in the winter time this time of year, it's going to be a lot shorter. But we can provide water through the system, so minimize electricity. We don't have to run probably about 6 hours a day of electricity. Generating electricity about 6 hours a day.
Another thing that we were looking into, when we had the last ice storm here, the town trucks couldn't get through because they couldn't get diesel. And we diesel, if they've got a pump, but it's electric. They get plenty of fuel and it keeps up here quite a bit. So we've got a grant that we can get where we get at least a pump on diesel so they can do all that. Yeah, so that's what they did do. But once you're doing that, you're out getting the roads even much better. So they are getting some electrical stuff that's back up into the town garage, so we'll have that too. So it's so it's a little thing that you guys keep thinking about, but which we didn't realize. So town Royalton Village over so that a lot better city, but during that ice storm was that for 4 or 5 days.
As far as emergency services with the fire department, ambulance service, the firehouse, we do have a backup generator, and if you be running there to provide heat during the winter time, to keep things warm. But it's about the only thing it would need to provide would be the heat, or maybe some radio traffic, radios and stuff like that for us. Other than that, I don't think there's anything else that we'd have to worry about there as far as that situation.
Do fire trucks catch you all from the same place?
No, we have our own fuel. That's true. But we probably would have enough there for 2 weeks if needed. Yeah.
So thanks. Make sure everybody has your coffee. Please help us out getting your coffee. And I want to open it up, but we have some questions, but feel free to go up, stand up, move around if you need to move around while we're doing this. Just quietly grab something you don't want. But you had a question already.
Yeah, thanks. I'm Dan Kenny. I live in Northern region, of course. I'm actually not laying late. I was here yesterday, now that you were here. So definitely not. I'm wondering, do we have a list of the most vulnerable people that, two lists, a list of people that have generators and could be warming huts, then the people that we know we wanna keep an extra eye on. It feels like when I was in Maine during '98, we were 14 days without electricity. And the best of the community came out, and the worst.
So in Tunbridge, we do have a list of neighbors helping neighbors put together different rows. I was shocked to see that I made the age grade. And Royalton, I don't know, but we can't, again, I just have to say again, in reality, you guys, we're doing this because we want you to think about self-survival. And if you can't self-survive or plan for it, you need to watch the weather forecast and get to a place where you need dialysis, get to the hospital area and rent a room. Because for us to try to get out of the fire department, trees are down, the wires are everywhere, we're not getting you. And you're gonna have to just take a deep breath, be nice and calm, and do Kevin's camp out thing, and just wait it out.
I will add that the state has something called a CARES list that each town now it's not, I will say it's not consistent, right, across towns, but they keep track of vulnerable populations and its vulnerability across multiple different types of factors, income, age, medical need, those kinds of things, and they will release that list to emergency managers, or they will release it even to GMP 24 hours ahead of a storm, so that you can check on those folks. We keep track of people that we consider to be vulnerable, that because we hear from them and they say, you know, some daughter in North Carolina calls and is like, my 90-year-old mother's alone. Like, we flag the account so that we proactively call during outages. We have a critical care team that is me and like 4 other people that calls people just to be like, where are you? Are you okay? Do you have a generator? Here's a warming shelter. Here's what to do. Here's who to call. So there are sort of those types of things in place, but the CARES list is a hard thing, I think, for them to keep up with, because each town, it's just sort of up to them.
Actually, what they have to do with the CARES list, and I know we've provided a town meeting, but people aren't signing up for it. You're gonna give a lot of personal information. It's kept secure. It's kept secure in the state of Vermont. It's only available to you and myself if we need it during an emergency. So we can keep encouraging people, but they're not utilizing it. I don't think.
No, I hear this all the time. You know, somebody that's super vulnerable and they're like, oh, I'm 92, but you need to check on my 97-year-old. Yeah, I'm fine.
Jan, your question about the generators and solar. The listeners do keep a track of all the solar panels. We don't charge for them, but they're there. And we are keeping, listening to anybody at the generator. We are earning small value properties on there, so we do have that list of who has a generator. And actually, to be honest, it's surprising to us. I'm surprised how many people have generators that are not the fix in the house ones. I would say, hey, I wouldn't ask, but I'm still everyone in a lot of houses. So I think it's good that that's something that you should talk to your neighbor about. If you know they got a generator, can you come over to their house when the power's off or something like that? So there is quite a few generators out there.
The other thing is I went ahead and expanded, and I've got my gas generator with all my switches to not electrocute a lineman or linewoman. But I also went out and bought a solar operated generator, and I actually like it. It'll run my house for 3 days, and I can turn my gas generator on skip out of it. So all my gasoline lasts for a long time, and then put the house back on the solar generator. Last time we were out for the 5, 6, 7 days, I can't remember what it was, there was actually no sun. So I couldn't experiment with recharging that any other way than gas. But I was telling Ari, there's that saying that 1 is none, 2 is 1. So have a backup to a backup with different diversity. I will fight like crazy to keep my propane stove that I can manually light. Because I'm gonna need it if the power goes out. I'm not switching over that quick if they're trying to take it away. So keep your diversity going.
Can't answer your question directly. Royalton does not have either list. We do work very closely with the police department and the fire department, and those folks know the vulnerable people.
Yeah, just tell us, you know, or whatever needs to come up.
We have not adopted the CARES program. We've talked about it. Issue I think a lot of towns have is getting people to sign up for it and then keeping it covered.
So basically, now you know.
Yeah, and that's the easiest way. If you reach out to your road, part of your road, your neighbor, that's the most efficient. It's about all we can really handle. And if the snow is deep and we had an ice storm on top of this, that's probably as far as any of us can really snowshoe. You know, and stay safe. You know, don't overdo it. Don't have a heart attack when you people's kid come. Any other questions? Just talk.
On the efficiency front, I appreciate the comments that the gentleman from Catamount made as far as managing load and for the people as well. This comes from an off-grid perspective, and there are a few people in this room tonight who are not connected to the grid, that managing your power all the time, even when there's not an emergency looming, you get in the habit of not running things that you really don't need. Phantom power. Phantom power, you know, if you add up 5 or 6 devices, you should also know the machinery, the things you have, the components that use a lot of power, like your water pump, or your refrigerator, your dryer, your washer, things like that you know that you're probably not going to use in an emergency situation, and maybe in general saving. I don't want to take away from the profits of Green Mountain Power, but you know, limiting your kilowatt usage. As far as backup power, I think the system that Green Mountain Power has, mostly with the Tesla Powerwall, I've heard a lot of good things about almost seamless going over from when the grid goes down to having power. We, as somebody mentioned, radios. Yes, I am involved with a radio station. We successfully got a grant for emergency preparedness. So we're adding additional backup power to our transmitter. Paul knows about that. With our water plant and also in the studio, so that communicating during emergencies, as Brad and Brenda know quite well, is really important. So having a hand crank radio is really important to keep up on things. A lot of people are in IRD all of a sudden. So it's a big surprise.
$50.
Yeah. So those are all things. Another good thing, particularly for folks that might be stretched a little bit for their means, that can invest in a big solar plant. 2 things actually. Efficiency Vermont has a lot of great incentives, not really grants, but things that are really cost reduction that can be done for saving energy. And the other thing that you might want to contact the legislator about is in Montpelier, a bill that has moved out of the Senate Natural Resources Committee. I think that's where it was, passed unanimously. It's roughly called balcony solar. And if that passes by the end, I think the governor probably would sign off on it. It's going to generate as much as 2,500 watts, I think is the amount, which for a lot of people is about 20% of your power usage. But if you coupled it with a battery, that would give you a little bit of extra, even if you're not really an off-grid person. This can be designed in a way that it's just feeding power directly into your system. A really good electrician like Simon to put it in. All right, that's enough for me.
Anybody else? I have a question. When are you going to start doing some of those lines in Tunbridge?
I knew you were gonna ask
I
me
know
that.
there's a place in particular, it's done it repeatedly, we think we had one house fire. It was a result of the surge on a refrigerator.
So, I talked to Tim Jones, because I said Brenda is gonna ask me this, and so the next plan for this area is in, off Route 12, Barnard, is the next project. he said he was gonna get back to me and then I could get back to you, because I knew you were gonna be asking about Tunbridge. Nothing planned at this point, but I mean, the whole state is.
Yeah, well, B comes before G.
Yes, I'll tell you.
Yeah, I have a question for you, I was just curious about it. What is your office background? Your prior, two weeks that you guys are something, I know that you're just substation. And, so what's your plan to go in?
We know line workers, so, that's.
I know that, but maybe, for substation goes out next
We
year.
have generators.
You have
We have generator backup at all of our district offices.
I thought you.
Yeah, large Generacs, you can see it outside. That's good.
This is a very edge case scenario, but if there were to be a large solar fire that basically would knock out electric transformers that need to be replaced, like what would the replacement time for that be? If there were to be for solar?
That's a nightmare, because it knocks out house too.
What I will say is that we have because of the way in which we're situated in Vermont, and 75% of Vermont in district offices, if you go by a district office, you can see all of the transformers in our yard. I mean, I would say what we'd probably be limited by in that case is just employees, staff, to get it done. But yeah, I don't have an estimate as to something like that.
Yeah, that's a nightmare,
It
because
would be the equipment.
vehicles will go down too.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the equipment that I would be worried about. It would just be the people that. We are constantly planning for large incidents.
And one more thing on the inventory front, I think it'd be wise for towns, particularly as EVs are adopted by more people, particularly ones with large batteries, to keep track of that. Our radio station lost power, and my brother said, get a good extension cord, plug it into your truck, then the transformer back on and we did, and ran for about 18 hours. And based on minimal power usage, there probably could have run for 10 days.
Yeah.
And kept the station on the air by using
Yeah. But we try to not draw that down to zero because it is primarily for you all to have backup.
And just to really push this out for those of you who are burning wood, I actually have a blast with these, and they're only like $30. And probably seen, we test the moisture in your wood. It's sort of a pet thing that I've had more people that are new to using it. They buy their wood in the late summer or early fall and have it dumped at their house. And the logger will say, well, it's been sitting on the landing for the last year, so it's dry, it's seasoned, but it was in log form. So it ain't. It's not as dry as you think. And one of these things is kind of fun because each species I find is kind of interesting to see how long it takes to dry them out.
And
But anyways, be careful with that.
what are you ideally getting it down to, Brenda? What percentage?
This one here happens to be 7.9, but it's sitting inside.
Yeah.
So I like to get it below 17.
Yeah.
Below 17%. And anybody else who runs wood, does that sound about right for you?
Yeah, next year's wood now.
Oh yeah.
What is that called, Brenda?
Oh, it's just a wood meter.
What is moisture meter?
Moisture meter. You can go on Amazon and get them for like $35. They're just fun too. Once you get into it, you start running around.
So sometimes your library.
Yeah, those are some of the things that would be great to have as things of lending library.
Yes, and I've loaned these out to people. I'm glad to loan it out. I mean, I'm past playing. I think I have. I know what it looks like for this year and next year. So you can borrow from me. And by the way, this kind of food storage that's dehydrated is good for 25 years.
Wow.
So, and that's not
Is it empirical?
I don't know how edible it is.
And that's if it's stored properly too, right? Yeah.
That's a good question. Are there things that, like at home, I don't know, and line of sight issues, but is that a thing anyone does, or is that not useful at
You,
all?
Simon may know.
So the just your little portable radios you can buy at Walmart or they're a line of sight basically.
Yeah.
As far as being able to see. I think ones that you're talking about maybe a little bit more higher powered. But
Well, they're dependent on some kind of transmitters too, or.
yep.
Some of those are ham radios that you have to technically be licensed to use, but yeah, you probably also want to get like ultra high frequency as opposed to like very high, I believe. There's a difference, like there's like a frequency difference.
They all have their place, but nothing real. The hills of South Road kill just about everything.
The higher you go, the less
I guess
agreeable with the hills it gets. But we're all going with.
you can like I guess reduce your car antenna, I guess. I don't know. You have boost the signal.
And there are, there's a group called ham racing, that area 36 operators, so they are ham operators. The group kind of comes self-contained. Towns can activate them, so they can go locate their town. The other one that's kind of hardwired right now is Hartford has a station, so that they can bring in ham radios operated there and look into their ambulance rights. But they can go, they can talk to the world.
And like Kevin, these are cheap ones, but I hope everybody's got these scattered all around their house.
They're you just wear them, put on, like.
Yeah, you just live in them. They're great. Because I have candles, but I always worry about fire, and I remember when we had a power outage once, we went through a fire where they tried to keep the kids warm, and it got the heaters too close to the blankets, and house fire. And it's not good when you're without power, the whole family now is kicked out in the cold, trying to find a place to be. Anybody missing one of these? I give them away. These are the cheap ones.
Oh,
The outage that we were talking about earlier, is that just for in town, for people in the water?
Well, this year, I think in emergency situations where people were needing water, we did this year with the drought. We actually said that people could come in and get water at the town garden.
There's lots of
We have, and I would assume that if people need potable water for drinking, that we would probably be able to, if we were able to make it, we'd have a place for people to pick up gallons of water before it comes to
Do we
the
have any springs, like just natural springs that can gather around town?
And that I know of here in Royalton, we have that name.
I could still eat water. This, I could.
Walter, whose job would it be to see about getting larger capacity propane tanks? It seems like it really have, what do you say, eight here?
that's something that, I think, I was gonna talk to you about this and how we can get that. No, it's a question. What'd you say, which generator?
Any of the ones that the town relies on, if they don't seem like they're big enough for what we're talking about.
But they're big enough. The problem is we gotta be, if they're full capacity, runs about 5 gallons an hour. And so we run about 3 to 4 days. Unpacked, actually, probably get, packed, twice that day. Free range building. It all matters on whether you need to keep this building, how much you're getting, how much you run electricity, which everybody said in the morning. So we've never tested it.
Worst case scenario is gonna happen in the winter.
Right.
It's gonna be an ice storm, you gotta need heat.
Right.
And you gotta need a place to get people warm, who unfortunately have sold their souls and got rid of their wood stoves. Well, like pellets, so they think it's better, but they get electricity. So if they're slab, they stay in the house with wood heat and gravity fed water, you don't need to worry about those people. But being a neighbor, we need to worry about the people who don't have the luxuries of the olden days.
Yeah, well, that's, as I brought that that is something that concerns me. I think it's quite the solution.
You'll never be able to store enough fuel to fuel the generator for main drives, so people need to be prepared. So we go back to our, like you said, early years of pioneers, have a well, a hand well or something, and be self-sufficient on that kind of stuff. Have the axe, if you run out of your gas and your chainsaw, you're all done. Have a saw, have something else to be prepared, because if you don't have that kind of stuff, you're not going to survive. Because none of us can store enough gas or propane to keep the area around. We didn't survive maybe a week. Well, but this meeting was based on 2 weeks. If we're talking about, we'll make an example, somebody doing something really stupid and we end up in a major conflict, this could be months and months and months. No one's got enough ammunition for that.
Yeah, I think.
Whatever you want to call it. But if we're going to be townspeople, like how do we take care of the people who we know need help? They all really get firm. How do we make sure we have a place? Maybe we need to put a wood stove or something like this. With the heating traps. Like they said, neighbor to neighbor, you keep.
Yeah, take care of each other. Talk about it ahead of time. That's why we're doing this tonight. Is think about these things ahead of time. Talk to your neighbors ahead of time. Get a system. I know on my road, it's not a real big road, but when we're having trucks going around, I was the first person on the road. I always said, "Hey, black trucks! I don't know what the heck they're up to something." And by the time we got to the top, we were on the top. 17 during the storm. I physically know that I can snow shoot to each one of them. And we can just take care of each other. But anyways,
When the power goes back on, is there an issue with surge?
yes, I forgot to bring it tonight.
I will address that. 2 years ago, the 22, when we had the winter outage, 22 we were out for a week. When Green Mountain Power would put the power back on, we had a power surge in one of the buildings in the village. It's caused a fire. We were lucky that we stopped it in the room that it was in. But know what you have on in the house. When the power was out, you maybe wanted to go turn those things off. There's really ceiling fan out in the bathroom that surged and started a fire in the bathroom. Simple things like that can happen. Appliances should be unplugged if they're not, being used, because when power surges go on, microwaves, anything that was on or sometimes didn't even have to be on could be surged and start fires.
If you have an older house like mine, and I forgot to bring it, I have surge protectors that do a delay. And the first time I used them, I was a little surprised the power was on. And I'm like, oh, the refrigerator hadn't come on. And it just waits until things even out. And we also had a fire that we suspect that we lost the house. It was a surge and the power came back on into the refrigerator. So big appliances like that really need to grab. Just unplug them. If you lose power, or get one of these surge protectors. Simon was telling us earlier that all the new houses tend to have them.
Yeah, most new houses are supposed to have a surge protector installed.
So I decided to do it.
Yeah, what is that?
Most very few houses have
Right on the main, yeah.
So the easy thing to do is turn the breakers off too.
Yes. And then just turn back on slowly, give it a little delay in between.
But people forget those things. Especially like here that we had the sewer out power in the village of South Royalton for 5 days. That is very unusual. I want to say that our heating we were only out 24 hours. But that winter, and it was in the winter time, there was a lot of apartment houses that were getting so cold. People were trying to figure out how to keep warm. And stuff. So, those things happen. But go through and double check your room, make sure you haven't got, as you said, it was a simple thing, if it was a ceiling fan in the bathroom that started fires in the bathroom.
I just thought of something else with the, we've got the power outage in the winter. A lot of people in the apartments have no clue, and if they're not staying warm and their pipes are freezing, somebody should go in and either drain them or have antifreeze for the traps or something. I mean, people honestly think that kind of thing. So if we had this kind of weather with power outage. They should be talking about a plan, that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
But I don't even think people take it like.
So like the Brightwood house in town, when we've had, maybe it was what you were talking about, 2 years.
Yeah, they don't have any.
They have no backup, no heat, and when we opened this building 2 years ago, on that cold night, we got some calls, but then nobody really came.
Yes.
Yeah. But the police were actually great in going around and checking on people.
So I really want to thank the whole panel here. Thank you guys.
That's their responsibility for